believe in the ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Renz, also known as Ricky Franz, and a great episode for you today. Today we have a really fascinating conversation with the host of the Expanding Reality Podcast, Brandon Thomas. And sometimes you have a guest on and things just click. And I believe this is one of those conversations. We really went deep in so many topics and so many interesting subjects and personal perspectives and philosophies on so many different things. These are the type of conversations I feel like I really, really enjoy. They're timeless. They can be beneficial for people listening who are also exploring similar ideas and philosophies while trying to figure out what this is all about. And these bigger questions, these deeper conversations, I can't have enough of them. And I hope you guys get as much from these type of chats as I do. And also, please check out Brandon's show, the Expanding Reality Podcast. As always, I'll put links in the show description to all his stuff and also all my stuff, which leads me to the next part of this intro. This is a Value for Value show. If you get something out of these conversations that I bring to you, and if you appreciate all the personal time invested in finding guests, booking guests, recording the conversations, editing, uploading, thumbnails, all the work that goes into producing and putting out a podcast, show your appreciation by reviewing, rating, subscribing to us on all the platforms that you can find us, which are many, and you can find that all on the rippleeffectpodcast.com or in the show description. And that little bit of effort of just reviewing, rating, sharing, posting it on your social media platforms, and helping get the word out about the Ripple Effect Podcast is a great way of supporting the show, giving some value back if financially you can't support the show. Now, if you can support the show, and like I always say, stop being a cheap ass. If you're in a good financial position, please consider giving some value back, and there's many ways of doing it. One way is joining our Patreon page, be a monthly contributor, which goes a long way because I can depend on that money every month. And if you do support me on Patreon, once a month, I do a Patreon podcast with my Patreon supporters. And recently, I also started sharing my Ricky Rants episodes on there, so you can listen to Ricky Rants on my Patreon page. And also, I have a PayPal account. If you want to donate, if you're in a good financial situation and you have a little extra cash, please consider donating using PayPal. I also have crypto wallets. If you go on my website, rippleeffectpodcast.com, click on support, you'll be able to find all of these, including the crypto wallets. If you're into Bitcoin, Ethereum, you can send a crypto donation that way. I have a merchandise store, which I'm really excited about. I have tons of new stuff there. Please check out rippleeffectpodcast.com, click on support, and you'll see the merch link, or you can go to the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com, and that will bring you directly to the merchandise store. And if you're looking for mugs, hats, hoodies, tank tops, kids' clothes, women's clothes, we have a little bit of everything. So please check out the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com to scroll around, browse around, see if there's anything that you might need or anything you might want or anything you might like at the Ripple Effect Podcast merch store. Also, if you watch or listen to the show on Rockfin contributes to the content creators. So please, if you're looking for the video episodes, check out Rockfin. There's tons of free content. The majority of it is free, and there's tons of content creators, including my brothers from different mothers, Charlie Robinson, Sam Tripoli, who hosts the Union of the Unwanted with me, and also many of the regulars on the Union of the Unwanted, like Jason Burmis, Grimerica, Whitney Webb, The Last American Vagabond, Slow News Day, The Convo Couch, The Propaganda Report, and many more. So you kind of get my point. If you're looking for alternative news, some really thought-provoking content, please check out Rockfin or Odyssey or BitChute or any of the alternative video platforms, and support free speech platforms like Float and some of the other many platforms I'm on. So go to rippleeffectpodcast.com. You can find all the locations you can find the Ripple Effect Podcast. You can also find all the social media platforms that I'm on. If you want to connect with me, I also have a Telegram chat if you want to connect with my listeners and connect with people in the community. And last but not least, please check out the links in the show description for the University of Reason and the Autonomy course. It is created by my good friend Richard Grove, and one of the smartest people I've ever met. He is a 9/11 whistleblower. He is the creator of the Tragedy and Hope website. He is responsible for one of my favorite documentaries of all time, State of Mind, The Psychology of Control. He is the host of the Grand Theft World podcast, and he recently was on my show, episode 392 of the Ripple Effect podcast, to discuss and go deeper into what the University of Reason is, what you can get out of the autonomy course, and the community that you become a part of, how it can help you find fulfillment, find your value, expand on that, and much more. And I think many of us can relate to being at a crossroads in life, feeling like you're a mouse just on a wheel running in place. And hopefully the University of Reason and the autonomy course can help you get off that wheel and get more out of your life. By clicking on the links below and checking out the course, it helps the Ripple Effect podcast. So if you're in a position where you want to help the Ripple Effect podcast and you also want to help yourself, please check out the links below and check out the University of Reason. Thank you guys. It's already been a long intro, so I'll cut it here. Enjoy this amazing conversation, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Nice shirt.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, just rocking it. What's up?
I have a soft spot for the X-Men, especially remember watching it on Fox back in the day.
Oh yeah, the 90s cartoons and everything. Absolutely. Now, what's interesting about this too is it's funny you said that. I have friends, so I'm not a contactee or an experiencer or anything, but I have friends who are, and I believe that they are. And so I'll have a particular friend actually say, "Hey, you came to me in my meditation today, but I saw you as Charles Xavier, and you were like gathering up all these X-Men and stuff, and you had all these kids around, which is like these mutant people with powers or whatever." There's actually a lot of very interesting things going on behind the scenes that would validate that. The other thing is my studio here, I've been doing the show for a while. When I got in the studio, every studio needs a name. What's the name of yours?
I don't have
You just
one.
call it the studio?
Yeah, I just
Okay. That's all right. Well, I named this Cerebro a long time ago. And that's, of course, what Charles Xavier puts his message out to the world with. And so anyway, that's where we are with that. So yeah, man, thank you.
Yeah, the thing about Marvel, it kind of sucks that Disney and a lot of other reasons it became kind of too kid friendly, and back in the day, like growing up watching the X-Men, like I could kind of understand all the little hidden meanings behind things, and I could I always saw the relation between what was going on in the cartoon and kind of like, okay, I can see how this was influenced by what's going on in the world, either war or discrimination, especially with the X-Men, because it was so heavy on, mutant discrimination, the humans thinking they were the other, and, kind of the way that people are looking at like the unvaxxed or Russians at the moment, or anybody who's Muslim, in the 2000s, earlier 2000s. So it's you could see how those techniques are used, and it was, as a kid, it was fun to see both sides, and then also seeing the internal dilemmas with the mutants, or the others, or the people who are being discriminated against, about how some feel like we can all live in unity, and some, like Magneto, felt like they'll never accept us, and we have to, look after our own interests. And you see that with the world today. It was just, I've seen a couple good documentaries on the history of comic books and some of my favorite characters and comic books, and it's always cool to kind of see what they were thinking or where their influences came from, And maybe sometimes as a kid you didn't really understand how well thought out the storylines were, but now looking back you realize like, wow, that was even deeper than I thought. And you can even you hope that it was a positive, it had a positive effect on your outlook on the world, because it's like, even though at a young age I didn't really understand racism or discrimination, once you run into those issues, you could kind of like reflect on your experience watching X-Men and how like, oh, yeah, discrimination is bad because I felt bad for the mutants. And, so I think it did help impact people in a positive way.
Yeah, it makes you empathetic and it makes you see things from a different vantage point. And even within that, Stan Lee was interviewed about the X-Men, and he said that that was one of his explicit focuses with writing that book, that series, was writing for those characters was just like the when they did integration in schools and they had segregation and they were integrating everyone, and those were the themes that played out. You're different than me, therefore I should be scared of you, and vice versa. And so these themes that Stan Lee even himself pointed out, I mean, they go really, really deep, like you said. I mean, it's cool because Wolverine's dope, and pashink, pashink, we all love it. But also, there's some huge themes that go on there, and the undercurrent of it, the ripple effect of it, are wide-reaching, even to the point to where you could anthropomorphize this out from the human's perspective in that storyline. Because yes, then from the human's perspective, let's say that you're one of these guys that just goes to work every day, and you're in the X-Men's world and they're battling each other, the good and bad forces. They're both superior in strength and all that. They possess physical qualities that you do not in an exceptional way. And you just kind of are in the middle of this thing being played out. So you're just, you're trying to go to work, some car goes flying by you, you're just trying to get to work, and the X-Men are battling Magneto. So there's that whole element of it, but really also, if you look at it like that, you could also plug in the UFO phenomena to that paradigm and say, okay, well, yes, there's some extra stuff going on out there. There's some that seem to exhibit malicious intent, and some that seem to exhibit that they have our best interests at heart. So obviously, there's this extra, these entities, but they each have motivations, and they find themselves also with desires and with like I said, motivations and agendas. So it's really interesting when you start extrapolating out stuff to that. Again, these global powers, you could do this with duality. You could do this with the concept of good and evil. Again, it's this extra outside from the human's perspective in the X-Men's world that you can look at around here and see similar parallels with that.
Yeah, and even understand how things being different can scare people just because it's different, not because there's any real reason for it to scare you. You obviously you saw it in the X-Men universe and comic books, but you see it now. It's like if you have a American who is very just, I don't know, I mean, maybe they live in a bubble where they're not around Muslim people, and then all of a sudden where the TV's telling you all Muslims are extremists, it can be scary. It's like, I don't understand their culture. I don't understand why they fast for a month. I don't understand why they don't eat pork. I don't get any of this. They're weird. Oh my God, yes, let's save them by pushing our culture onto their culture. And it's a well played tactic, and usually reused over and over again, this idea of making these people or anybody that they want to demonize, make them look like they're completely different and they're the other. And which is weird, especially the fact that that trick works in the US, where most people, I mean, if you are open-minded at all to other people and other cultures, if you're a friendly person, you're going to meet people from all over the place. And in my personal life, I mean, I have friends that are from Lebanon, El Salvador, Estonia, Poland, I mean, all over the world. And I just don't know how people don't have people, our friends in their lives from all these different cultures that help you better understand where they're from, and they're just who they are, and really understand that there's probably a lot more similarities and a lot more things you can talk about and laugh about and you have in common than you probably think.
Dude, 100%. This is always the case. And all you have to do is go travel to another country to experience this, like you said, or just invite over a cultural person that you don't normally associate with and just learn more about them, take them out to lunch, something like that. Interact with people just as people, because that's what we are, but find the cultural differences intriguing rather than divisive, right? They're posed as something that should be divisive, and that was a model that worked for a really long time. Unfortunately for the lizard turds, we are all very, very awake now. Awake, not woke, right? And so this idea that this still can work in an age where we are more connected than ever. Because yes, it was easy back in the day to do the propaganda and to say, okay, well, this country is doing this bad thing, and then because you were very isolated, all you had to go on was that. Maybe a carrier pigeon, flow across the ocean or something, but it's probably not. So now, though, we're getting information from both sides. We're getting people in Ukraine that are saying, "Look, this is not happening," or actually, it's our country that's bombing our own people. And you see all of these different angles now, and we're all way more united and connected than ever. So it is interesting that all of the things in the world seem to be ramping up at a point to where it only instills more alertness in the populace. Now, you can focus on this ubiquitous group of folks that we like to affectionately refer to as sheeple. And that type of controllable individual is there, but I don't think the numbers exist like they say that they do, because they're just super loud. And like anybody's super loud, it's a super small portion of the population. You think a Chihuahua to a Great Dane. That Chihuahua is pretty damn loud, but he's tiny, tiny, tiny. It's a very minuscule amount in volume even. And so I think, though, that the way to look at this is that the more crazy it gets, the more we're, I guess, winning, if you have to put it that way. That's the read I get on it anyway.
Yeah, I like to think that. I think that there are a lot of people who are open to how unscientific science really is, and how open they are to the idea of eugenics and vaccines possibly harming people. And like, so all these things that were very taboo, people are open to. But I also feel like we enjoy being distracted from it all. Most people don't want to live their lives deep in these rabbit holes of corruption and conspiracies and analyzing the most evil people and events in the world. They'd rather be naive. They'd rather be naive. Ignorance is bliss, kind of move on their day. And that's kind of like a concern about what's going on right now. You see everybody saying like, oh, COVID's behind us. It's like, yeah, but the trauma that we got from all of it isn't. And some of the government overreach, that's not gone. The big tech censorship, that's not gone. So some things, you can say that we're moving on from, but there's still a lot of things that are going to affect our lives forever and have a lasting effect on all of us. So, but people are distracted again because they have some of the freedoms back to go enjoy life, go travel, go to games, do whatever, go to school, go to dinner with your wife, all these things. People are distracted again, and I don't think their focus is going to be on some of these issues that their focus has been on, like it was, because they have those things back. And that's kind of the issue that led us to where we got eventually anyways, was the fact that many of us were talking about medical freedom. I mean, I've done plenty of shows on vaccines and alternative medicine, and so many just great guests throughout the years. And really, one thing I would constantly keep saying is how dangerous the big pharma is, and how we keep talking about the military industrial complex like they're the only threat to humanity, but big pharma might be even a bigger threat. And then next thing you know, 2020 comes around, and it's like the issue that nobody cared about. All of a sudden it's like, holy shit, like we're all being forced to take a experimental vaccine. People are losing their jobs, people are getting sick, people are doctors that are trying to treat people are being suppressed. And it's like, yeah, like we've kind of been trying to tell you about this. So I'm like worried about like history repeating again in regards to people just kind of going back to their distractions and then letting things get bad until it gets to a point where you can't ignore it because it got so deep into your personal life. Once like you couldn't go to work, once you couldn't go to dinner, once you couldn't do all those things that were distracting you, all of a sudden you were stuck having to pay attention. So I'm a little concerned about people not being forced to pay attention. Did you have the same concern, or maybe you're more positive, more optimistic?
I'm a chronic optimist, man, and this is what's interesting about this. So I actually completely see it the other way around. Now, what I do see is you're absolutely right on this, that the ramp up and the the ripple effect, again, great name for your show, by the way, brilliant, would be the thing that rippled out and changed everything. Because if you really take a step back and look at it, it's not the old world, and we're not handling it the same way. There's a certain percentage of the population that are, there's an interesting study done on boomers, too, you should check out, where they're actually, not all of them, and don't write me letters and shit, but there's holes in their brain from the damn leaded gasoline that was running around at that time. So actually there's a physiological reason why we have Karens and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting too. Gives me a little bit more patience.
But this is related, and just to kind of defend that that idea, in New York, when they got rid of the lead from paint, the crime rate went drastically down. So they think that there's some correlation between the lead paint and basically having some psychological or health effects on the population. And so this kind of related and kind of defends that point.
100% related. Also, it's the lead in the piping from, drinking out of the hose, all that stuff in the summertime from that era, as well as Corte Costa, the region of California where all these highways emerged when the international highway system was happening out there. And in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, there was just an epidemic of serial killers. I'm sure you've heard about this. There's a famous detective that took them out. I forget his name, and I'm not a true crime guy. It's just a very interesting fact. So he, Paul something. Anyway, they also around that time kind of figured this out and correlated it to the lead in the gasoline, was for this craze in mentality. It actually eats holes in your brain, and it's lead paint, it's pipes, it's the gasoline. That's why we switched to unleaded gasoline. So that being said, there is a little bit of extra patience I have with people who are scared. And I think that that's what the institution in place is great at. There's an idea of the chakra system and things like that. Energetically, it doesn't matter, where people align with this stuff, because my show covers a lot of stuff, expanding reality, but I'm very pragmatic in the way that I look at it. I don't deny any of it. I think it's all absolutely possible, but I'm very open and honest in that I don't experience what we refer to as woo-woo. I don't see ghosts. I don't see UFOs. I love it, and I talk about it all the time, but I don't experience it. So in the same way, there are some concepts energetically that talk about that this place here, now whenever you view the world through this modality is why I'm bringing it up, it makes a lot more sense. That if this is a realm of energy or a planet of energy or whatever, and that really what we're doing is learning how to manipulate that energy, as Dolores Cannon says that we're here to do, then that root chakra is very fear-based. It's low, it's sex, it's war, it's we call it low vibe, but really it's just very destructive behaviors from a higher perspective. From a peaceful perspective, they're very destructive behaviors. From the perspective of the chakra itself, or that energy level, it's very fear-based, it's chaotic, it's pleasure-seeking, instant gratification. It is those kinds of things, but it's in a way to where there's a lot of dissonance that's created with this. And so this is why the model is interesting. Now, if you extrapolate this out to the system that's here, which is what I think this is, then the system out here keeps you or motivates you by every action that they take from every corner of their reach to keep you in that chakra level, okay, let's say, or that lower vibe state. And they do this with fear. They do it with the media, movies, news, propaganda. It's pervasive. They do it in the food that we eat and what they're spraying in the skies, with the water, with the fluoride. All of these techniques are here to keep you in that state. And even like Kanye's rant, I don't take what you want for that guy, but he is right about this, that the 808 that came out, the beat machine, was specifically designed to keep you in that low frequency. And there's all sorts of stuff. I think it was in the 1953, because I did look this up for a show, that's why it's fresh. 1953, they switched from 432 hertz to make the standard tuning of music 440 and A on the keyboard there, center A to be 440, and so therefore it adapted our music, therefore changing the frequencies. And there's a lot of science to this. This is my favorite part about marrying the people who say, I talk to Archangel Michael, which I don't experience that, but I believe that they do. And it takes that stuff and puts it into a practical application where you can say, actually, there's science in quantum physics tells us, based on the double slit experiment, that anything you observe, as you observe it, it alters what you're seeing. Now, if you just think about that one fact, that just by you looking at something, you affect it, that means that, everyone's having a different story here. At some level, we don't live in the same place, because what you see is affected by you. And we know this with tons of studies. So again, this is married to science. But what I'm saying is if this is a system that keeps you in that low vibrational state, then it's meant to. And by contributing energy to that system, you're giving it what it wants. All it wants is negative, fear-based energy. Now, what I think the opportunity for these buffoons that are before us, giving us this example of how they think we should live our lives and what they feel is right for us, which we obviously don't resonate with. Now, there's a point to where that realization occurs, and you say, you know what, this is not for me, and I'm pissed off about it. Awesome, absolutely. Anger and fear are great motivators. Now, I don't encourage people to exist there, because again, yes, you're correct in asserting and assessing and observing that what you're being told is a lie, and they're doing it to outright destroy this place, to cage you, to do all of the things that you're scared about are absolutely right. But the way, again, that I see it, where my energy is a little bit different with this, is beyond that point. There is a point of opportunity, and that's all I see now is opportunities. Now, with these people waking up, as we call it, there is an energetic time here. Again, it can get woo, but there's a lot of science to this. So there is an energetic time here to where there are a lot more people just sick of the bullshit, man. You know this with the Great Resignation, as they called it, with the working from home, with people being called back into the offices, and them quitting their jobs and just saying, get fucked. People buying vans, people starting gardens. All you have to do is talk to Jim Gale. Ask how great Jim Gale and Food Forest Abundance doing right now. Massive. Biggest time ever. And so it's these kind of things that I think is what the shittier parts of stuff, coupled with a little bit of extra awareness. Again, I think there's an energetic timing to that that's happening, and maybe cyclical. Couple that with all of that, what you end up with is a new society. You end up with new people that the lizard turds can't affect anymore because we've just been immune to it. This is a time of trusting your intuition and discernment. And if you see fear, all you're going to see is fear. If you see opportunities, all you're going to see is opportunities. And it's not delusional to be this way. This is the time, if you want to refer to anything like that as being delusional, I encourage everyone to be delusional as fuck right now. Woo-woo it up. If you find that what you're doing is creating dissonance in your life, whether it be running through the hills and screaming that, you know, they're all coming to kill everyone, then if that's in dissonance with you, take a breath and take a break from it. Be delusional. You know, throw it to the wind. Don't let anyone ever fucking trample on your rights or your family's. That's the thing. Tend your garden. But as far as contributing negative energy into the system, if everyone took a break from it for a day, Klaus Schwab would not swoop in here with bombers and take over. Nothing would happen, but we don't contribute energy to the system. Basically what it is I view it, again, now I'm not telling anyone to be a pacifist as well. This is not that. What I'm saying is perhaps, maybe view it every now and then a little bit differently. By saying, you know what, yes, this information is there. It wants my attention, but your attention is your most valuable currency here. That's all you've got, like currency, like Jordan Maxwell talked about. These are the ideas that I really, again, resonate with for the woo-woo word of it, because they bring me peace. They bring me internal satisfaction, and actually it's enhanced my life in ways that I could never articulate, just simply because I was willing to look inside, say, you know what is my role in this? What do they want from me? Even Gordon White, he has that famous quote, your reaction to the crisis is part of the crisis. They want energetic engagement in it, especially from the people who can see it for what it is. Not the fluoride-ridden people who they're trying to wake up. That dance is what the system wants. It wants that. So how I have taken to it is just to disengage from it. I've unplugged from it altogether. I couldn't tell you the last time I looked at something about, I don't know, anything on the news. I just I get it from you guys. You're one of my best news sources, and I trust you, and so that's a nice thing to lean on. But as far as like energetically engaging in the system, as far as allowing it to rob me of any moment of now, which I would choose to be doing something else, I don't participate in it anymore. And I have found that that is the way that I've slayed that dragon in my life. Never been happier. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's I think a very valid point. I would tell people over and over again, stop watching the news and the crisis is over. Like it's a news created pandemic. You look around, there's not dead bodies in the streets, not hospitals being filled. I mean, are they full? Yeah, hospitals are always full. They're like hotels. They have to be filled at a certain capacity or they're losing money. You can't have all that equipment, all that staff, all those rooms and not have bodies in those beds, and then you're losing money. So they have to run at a certain capacity. So this, and who in the past hasn't had to wait at a ER at some point in their lives? It happens all the time. People wait in the ER. Sometimes hospitals get busy. It's not the end of the world. So and it definitely doesn't justify all the actions and all the lockdowns and government overreach, and obviously things, from a positive light, things are being exposed to what really is going on. I just hope it's not trauma that people want to forget and move on. And the reason I say that is because I think people should be responsible for what happened. And I'm a little bit of afraid of people being happy that they have their lives back and say, well, fuck it. You know what? Like, I know it sucked, and I know that small businesses shut down, and alcoholism went up, and child abuse went up, and all these horrific things, and most of us are dealing with some type of trauma from it. But we got our lives back, so why ponder on it? It's way easier to just to not spend any more time on the topic. And people did get COVID fatigue. I mean, I had COVID fatigue a little bit doing shows, but it was like, I would have a doctor hit me up and like, hey, have this person on or have that, and then they're doing amazing work. I'm like, I need to get this information out there. So I'm like, I have to keep talking about it because there's so much to talk about, and things are constantly evolving. And we're all contributing by putting the information out there, sparking the conversation, and trying to reach people, and trying to get people to see what's really going on. So it was, but it did get to a point where it was like, can I do a show on philosophy? Can I do a show on, a historical event that isn't the 2020 COVID event? Just because I wanted to take a break from it. So it was this, and I felt bad for my listeners because I constantly had that internal battle where I'm just like, this is important. I need to constantly keep hitting on this topic. And as long as there's guests and good conversations that I think I can record on the topic, I should keep doing it. But I felt like, every once in a while I needed a break from it. So I'm sure the listeners probably felt like that too. So it was hard to kind of balance it all out.
It's interesting also is a bit because you were, again, I look at things very differently, okay? I believe in this concept called like attracts like, and it's very basically where your focus or your attention goes, which is, again, I'm going to keep calling back to this, it's your most valuable asset. What you pay attention to, because that's energetically what you're calling back to yourself. The world, again, from my perception at a certain level, is a mirror to you. You only bring into you because you're creating from within, and so it mirrors back to yourself. It's a very interesting thing once you start looking at the world that way. You become responsible for your actions, you change yourself for the better, and everything falls into place in a great way. So, again, kind of a side mission for everyone, maybe every now and then just ponder the world in that way. And if you see something in someone else, change it within yourself and watch it change. I use this example. My wife and I started really, really, really working on me about a couple of years ago. Now, I've always been pretty mindful, but really hit it hard about a couple of years ago. And I noticed one morning I woke up and all the things I wished were different about my marriage were completely different overnight. And all I did was fix me. I changed me, my partner changed. And it's something, again, I highly recommend. So back to what we were talking about. If you feel the call to take a break, that's probably what it is, and the good news is the bullshit will still be there. And the other good news is we still have amazing warriors that I am grateful to call friends and family like yourself. Union of the Unwanted, of course, any damn person who's ever been on there. We all are interested in the same idea now, and we all disseminate information at different levels of people's awareness, what they're ready for, right? So we offer people, I don't know, kind of like a grade level. If people are just getting into spirituality and conspiracies, or people have no fucking clue what's going on, I turn them to you guys. I'm like, guys, get them the fuck initiated. This is your Jordan Maxwell's, your Santos Bonacci's kicked all this off for us. And yeah, man, I am very conspiratorial minded. That's where I started. I Paul revered for fucking years, dude. And I got to the point to where it was just toxic for me. And I found a different way to still be a resource in that arena. And basically I take the lighthouse approach. I'm here to talk to you about it if you want, but I'm definitely not going to shove it down your throat. I'm not going to guide a conversation to that unwarranted when there's still dope shit out here. And that's what the cabal hates more than anything, is when you ignore all of their threats, because that's all they are. It's Sam Tripoli's thing. It's a haunted house. It just pops up and goes, ah, no one's going to hold you down and throw a needle in your arm. I could just go ahead and tell you guys that. No one is going to do that. Energetically, it goes against the law of the universe. It goes against it. How I know that they're respectful of that is because when you look at secret societies and you look at all of the symbolism that they throw out there and all of the what do they call it? Predictive programming elements, where they have to tell you what they're going to do, whether you believe in an energetic system like that or not. They, for fuck's sake, do. They follow it. They abide by it. So therefore, if that's true, then you can kind of look at it again. And this is where Sam gets his confidence to say this, is because the Hermetic ideas are very real, and they're very real for these people too. Just look at what happened last night at the Oscars. I, of course, didn't watch it, but I've seen it. I've heard people talking about it. Wysop's already all over it. I know you guys are already all over that shit, which again brings me back to my point. We need the union of the unwanted. We need you. We need you to be fired up about this shit. I get fucking fired up about it, but in a different way. We need, though, you guys to approach the topic that people are coming into it at their reading level, which is wake the fuck up, and here's why, and constant resources, constant validation. And it's amazing, because for every one fact that the Cabal's Deep people put up, you guys put up 20 more about why it's wrong. I am so fucking impressed with the way people are shooting down these narratives just like this. Oh, actually, that picture of the little girl slapping the soldier was in 2008, somewhere completely different. Oh, actually, that footage that they just told you was a bomb that went off in Russia, or in Ukraine from Russia, and everybody's dying was actually in Israel in 2011, and here's the footage from it. Like, it is so fucking quick, and I love it. I love it. I love it. So the interesting part is, again, this is why it's shifting, and it's shifting hard. And so this is the thing. This is not like an unrealistically optimistic thing. Again, the crazier it gets out there, the more you know it's working, the harder they are to fight. The way that I kind of visualize this in a metaphor is that, yeah, man, they're a scary seven-headed dragon, and they'd been running this show for a long time. But we have beaten them back to the point to where they are falling off a very far cliff to their death. And all they have is a couple of, like, spears. I don't know why this dragon could throw spears, but this is just the image I have. And the dragon is falling off of this cliff to its death. It still has a couple of rounds of ammunition. It's lobbing up, and all we're doing is kind of leaning over and letting them fly past. It is an immediate shutdown of all the bullshit. People are waking up more and more. We now have everyone invested in the idea of that there is something better, and that the way to do it is not give your attention to that bullshit, but they need to be brought to the light by folks like you and what you do with your show. Now, again, for me, it was toxic to do it consistently, and I know your audience can trust you to be honest with them. And so anytime that something comes up that they need to know pertaining to that or any subject, you're going to be all over it, and they know that about you. Throwing them a UFO show every now and then is awesome too. Again, it kind of gets their attention geared off of the thing that wants their attention, and that's just the way I look at it, man. It's so freeing. Now, whether it's delusional or whatever, that's fine. I live on 12 acres with my wife in Texas. I've got my freedom provisions here, so we're good to go, and I'm definitely where I need to be in respects to all of that. Zero fear about anything parachuting on my land that I'll need to be prepared for, but I'm prepared for that if it happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one thing you talked about, and I constantly talk about on the show too, is just positive energy and negative energy, and how every little act, every little change in the way you look at something can result in a positive outcome. And it's like the quote I keep repeating on the show: if you change the way you look at things, what you look at changes. Everything's perspective. Mm-hmm. And if you tell yourself and you have those internal conversations about changing maybe the bad habits, like I am probably the guiltiest person ever in regards to, like, I constantly feel guilty about everything. Like I'm like, every little thing, it's like, oh, I could have done better. I could have reacted better. I could have said that better. I could have dieted harder. I could have worked out a little harder. And guilt's my best friend and sometimes my worst enemy, but mostly my best friend. I use it as a tool to constantly reanalyze the way I treat people, the way I do things, the way I live my life, the way I react to things, and hope that it forces me to observe and analyze it and improve it if need be. And so I think that's really important. I don't think people do enough self-reflecting and looking in the mirror without the bullshit filter that tells you that every negative interaction you ever have in your life is because of the other person's fault. It's because it's and maybe it is, and that's a thing. That's another part of the conversation that people have to come to terms with, is sometimes you are dealing with somebody that maybe they're not putting in as much effort as you to meet halfway, or not argue, or not get in an emotional fight, or whatever it may be. But it doesn't mean it's not worth your effort in trying to improve that interaction, because if you do, you both win. You end up having a more positive interaction with that other person, and you also feel better. And there's nothing like negative energy just kind of sitting on your back and on your shoulders and holding you down, weighing you down. And a lot of times you're not even aware of it until it's gone. I said this, I think I was saying this recently on the False Reality Check podcast. I think they released it today. Actually, I was just on their show, and they're awesome. They always end up, they do a really good job of like extracting like deep conversations and deep thought out of people. And but yeah, I mean, sometimes you're not even aware that the weight's there until like the friction is gone. It's perfect example, and this is, I'll use this example because everybody's had this issue, but you can also relate it to negative interactions with a coworker or a family member. Like if you have a bill that you're like, oh shit, I'm behind on it, I need to get some money to pay it. Once you pay it, it's gone. Even when you're not thinking about it, like you don't realize it's weighing on you. But once it's paid and that debt's gone, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel a little happier. I feel it's a little easier to stay positive. And you didn't realize that all that negativity was coming from this thing that it was in your subconscious, kind of lingering around, and just bringing you down a little bit. And it's no different than negative interactions with coworkers or friends or family or whoever. Like you have some type of friction with somebody, and it lingers and it lingers, even if you're like, I don't give a fuck what their opinion is. But because there's that negative energy between you and this other person, until you squash it, it can kind of weigh on you. And so it's really important, I think, as we get older, to, like you said, be in the now, and really not take for granted the now. They call it the present because it's a present, it's a gift, it's the now. And so it's really important to not constantly be distracted, and really enjoy the simple things. And that's one of the things that I think 2020 gave a lot of people. I had a lot of friends that were like, oh, well, the good thing is at least I got to spend more time with my family and whatever. And I'm like, this is stuff you guys should have known before. Like for me, it wasn't a huge change, because I've already tried to spend as much time as I can with my friends and my family, and not taking those things for granted. So it wasn't it wasn't a huge change. But for some people who realized that they were neglecting their marriage, they're neglecting their friendships, neglecting whatever passion project or hobby they might enjoy, neglecting their kids, like it kind of woke them up a little bit. And like I keep saying on the show, it's like, okay, we kept resisting the new normal and the great reset. We're like, bad. And then I'm like, one thing we have to do is like pump the brakes a little bit and realize like, well, the old normal wasn't flawless either, and it needed work, and it wasn't perfect. There's plenty of people who are unhappy, working unfulfilled jobs, basically investing all the best years of their lives, all their energy, all their time into some unfulfilling career that they think is going to bring them happiness, and all it really does is bring you emptiness and material bullshit. And I think that's why probably people in our age, I'm assuming we're somewhat similar in generations that we grew up in. They grew up with parents that were divorced and unhappy, and marriage was like a business. You're together because you own a house and you have kids together. So fuck it. It's not about happiness. It's not about being with somebody you enjoy being with. It's just about like, hey, it's convenient and it works, so why not? And then when online dating came, and Facebook and MySpace and all that stuff, all of a sudden those really unstable relationships turn into cheating and divorces. And so yeah, I mean, I think hopefully one of the other good things that comes out of all of it is that people are reanalyzing what's really important. One thing you also see a lot is you're seeing employers talk about how, like, oh, the younger generation are so lazy, they don't want to work, they don't want, and it's almost like employers or people in general of older age, like they've been brainwashed to think that work is always good. And I know Thaddeus Russell, who's a past guest on the show, and he has a great podcast called the Unregistered Podcast. When he was on the show, we talked about this, about how he thinks it comes from like our Puritan ancestors, about this idea that it's instilled in us that work is always good, regardless if it's fulfilling, regardless if it pays well, regardless if it's something you enjoy. Work is always good, and you can see that in basically just everyday life. Like if you had a daughter, I have a daughter, she's 5, so hopefully she's not going to be dating anytime soon. But society would tell you, if she had 2 boys to pick from, and one's like an investment banker, and the other one's a struggling musician, typical parents' reaction would be like, that dude's a loser. You date the investment banker. He comes from a wealthy family. He's going to take care of you. And even though he's going to take care of you maybe financially, but he's not going to take care of you emotionally, or or you might not have a connection with them, you might not have anything. So it's like, and it's like, why do we immediately neglect those things, the emotional support, and we constantly put on this pedestal the financial support? And it makes sense. Like it's that Puritan ancestor type of thinking, where it's like, it's all about work is always good. If somebody doesn't want to work on a weekend, have we ever considered maybe it's because they realize that time's the only thing that they can't get back, and every weekend that they invest in that job, or that whatever overtime that they might be getting, they could be spending that time with their kids or their wives or their friends, and they'll never get that weekend back once it's gone. So I don't know what my point was of all that, but hopefully you got something out of it.
I definitely did. And something I would say to that would be that it's not that we don't want work, because what we want is purpose. So the time for passivity is gone and participatory reality is in. The time for just work for money is gone. And the time for purpose and being motivated by a cause or something that you're talented in, or a gift that you have innately, that is in. So it's a shift of perceptions. I know that, God, who was it? The dude who has the Money Matters thing, very famous guy. Anyway, he would always say, like, where the paid off mortgage has taken the place of the BMW's status symbol. And so now, though, it's that the acre with a garden, chickens, bees, and no debt has taken the place of this bullshit system that we've been told is the great thing the whole time. Now, again, I think that there has been a system here. It's been a veil, a sheet basically, that's been pulled over our eyes, and we refer to it kind of as the Great Deception, because that's what it feels like now. I think that veil is lifted, not lifting, lifted. That's why it's crazier than ever. That's why more people are, get fucked more than ever to those lizard turds. More people are waking up, as we call it. And what we mean by that is just basically realizing that they've been getting fucked every day of their life, and that they're over that, and we're just not going to play that game anymore, and that there's a much better way to do this. And it doesn't mean tearing all the cell towers down, and it doesn't mean that we don't have internet anymore and we're just going to be Amish and churn butter. No, it means that the systems in place have been hijacked to be used against us. Now, we can do the same in the way that we don't give them the negative attention. We don't put these tools to use in a way that's going to contribute energy into the beast that just wants energy. It just wants to be fed, right? And so I think that's what we're seeing right now. That's what this shift is in awareness. This is what, again, like that Great Resignation. People are just leaving their jobs, dude. They realize that they don't have to be where they are, and that, again, it's like everyone, the reason it's called waking up is because it feels like over the past couple of years, you would just see someone just go, hang on, fuck this, and just leave, and just gone. And so it's this instant recognition. Again, this is that thing where the veil has been lifted. You've been snapped out of hypnosis. You're brought back. When they counted down from 1, you're no longer clucking like a chicken in front of an audience. It's over. And so now you move forward to a greater, grander version of who you are. And that's what creates the future. And you do this by, again, tending your garden. The bullshit's still going to be out there as long as we pay attention to it. No one is going to come stick a needle in your arm. They're just not. again, because they obey the laws. And so they just can't. That goes against the law of your consent. Now, you do consent when you engage in these things energetically. So you're consenting for them trading off energy from you and siphoning from you. Again, it's a tactic. It's just something that I feel is happening. And once I detach from it, man, again, like that moment, I woke up, I was like, hang on, fuck this. And then just, that was it. So highly, highly encourage it. Now, also to what you said about negative energy, it's just something I kind of wanted to point it out. We know that spells and spelling are very important to these people. We know that, like I've taken the word try out of my vocabulary as much as I can, because it's a state of, it's existing in a state of not actually going to, right? And so when you start to pay attention, or just look at speech critically, that this is one of the things. Now, when we say negative energy, what comes to my mind is how I look at that and would phrase it would be dense energies, or energies that are showing you that there's something here maybe to pay attention to because you could be happier. Like, that's basically what that is. It's a calibratory tool. It's kind of a spider sense, if you want to say that, like Spider-Man. It's a, hey, maybe there's something that you want to pay attention to, and it starts with you. You change yourself, and this outward thing will stop popping up in your face. You know this with drug addiction. Stop doing drugs. They stop popping up. Alcoholism. If you've got problems with that, then once you heal from that, whatever that is, the problems you had stop showing up. Once you choose to stop being in abusive relationships, they stop showing up. Anyone that's healed from these things will tell you this. And so, therefore, all it really is an opportunity for you to get a glimpse into something that is an obvious tool built into the system that says, hey, maybe there's something that you could pay attention to here and move on from, or pay attention to and keep continuing to perpetuate that experience. Either way is fine. You know, this place doesn't give a shit what you want. It just gives you what you are, right? What you're being. And so, it's really that simple. And so again, I kind of encourage people, like, even if you're out there and you're just like, oh, the fuck is this? You know, this is all bullshit. Just try it. It's not going to hurt anybody. You don't have to tell anyone. Kind of like the shower portal thing. Just jump in the shower, step out into a better version. You can do these things just for funsies. And then feel free, after you maybe attempt this for like a week or something like that, to write in expandingrealitypodcast.com, and then let me know how it's going for you. If I'm totally full of shit, let me know. But if you give this a real go, I think that you will find that your life changes in a week. I would say it takes longer to really solidify, but what you're really going to find in that week is a bunch of shit that pisses you off. And the reason that this works is because you're presented with the things that you were presented with before to change independently, and now you're going to just knock them all out at once because you've decided to do that. It's an interesting process, and by God, on the other side, it's really fucking dope. So I highly recommend, again, that everybody just kind of check it out, see if it's right for you.
Yeah, I think anytime people can find, that's why I think passion projects or yoga, exercise, whatever it may be, that whatever you enjoy, like, do more of it as much as you can. And I know sometimes we lack in energy or time because, like I said, like, work will just consume all your energy.
Oh, yeah.
So it's hard to find the time and energy to do the things for you, and that will help improve your life. And it seems like, okay, well, maybe if I'm lazy and I just get some rest, that's what I really need. But we need not just physical therapy and physical exercise, but mental therapy and exercise. And I mean, obviously they go hand in hand, because when you exercise, you feel better. I mean, there's been plenty of studies about how exercise can help anxiety and depression more than, most prescription drugs, which I'm a big believer of. I mean, I feel the reason why I'm so calm, or my fuse is as big as it is with my kids or my life on day to day, is because I exercise every day. Every day I go to the gym. I play sports a couple times a week, and I always feel like I get all this tension off my chest. When I get back, I always feel like, wow, I'm so calm. I'm like, I'm talking to everybody in a calm way. If the kids mess something up, I'm just like, okay, it's all right, we'll figure it out. Where if I was tensed up, I'd be, and you never know people's background either, right? Like, I had this kid I played basketball with. We played pickup ball at the same place, and we were always butting heads. And I'm just like, this fucking kid. I'm like, one day we're gonna go at it, because it's like we're always like, anytime we're guarding each other, we would get real physical, and like to the point where we'd have to get like, almost broken up. And it was just like there's a tension every time we played against each other. And then I was talking to somebody, and they were like, I know his mom. He's like, she's been in and out of jail. Uh, he doesn't know his dad, and just like really kind of shitty life, and um, you realize like he's a product of his environment, and he probably has a bunch of other stresses and other things that he's taking out on the court and or other people that he's playing with. And you kind of start getting to the point where you you go from being upset and being like what a shithead to thinking like, wow, I feel bad for him, and so it's like it's so important to do that, just kind of understand that people's experiences and their backgrounds and their journey is different than yours, which means the way they look at things, the way they react to things is different. But again, this is why this topic is so important, because if you can work on that, regardless what your background is, regardless what hard thing you've been through, you can help make the now better if you just change the way you look at things. And one example I use a lot is like, you look at the difference between somebody who's taking a game winner jump shot, and he looks at it as a stressful situation, or somebody who sees it as a opportunity for success. And it's like, okay, you could either look at it as a opportunity for failure, like I'm going to miss it and I'm going to let everybody down, or you can look at it as a opportunity for success. Oh, if I make it, I'm going to be the hero who saved the team and saved the game or whatever. So it's like the situation itself doesn't change. It's just the way you're observing it and perceiving it. And that example can be used for everything, right? I mean, you wake up early in the morning, you're tired as all hell, and you're like, okay, this can be a disciplined exercise where like I can say, hey, I'm going to the gym regardless if I'm tired and then I didn't get a good night's sleep. Or I can use it to procrastinate and be like, you know what, I'm gonna sleep in, I'm gonna be lazy, I'm just gonna take today off. And so I think all those I think we don't emphasize discipline exercises and just mental exercises like that enough. How do you, I like getting origin stories of people, because I find it fascinating to kind of figure out how they got here and maybe what influenced their way of thinking or looking at the world. For people listening, we did mention it briefly, your show Expanding Reality, and I highly recommend everybody checking it out. And you have been on Unnamed Unwanted also. Can you tell people a little bit about your origin story, where you grew up, how you got into podcasting, anything else interesting along your life journey?
Sure, had a nothing but an interesting life, which is awesome. So I'll just surmise as best I can. Born and raised in Keller, Texas. Keller was a very small town when I was raised there, and so it was just woods everywhere, very small town. But not like country, but small. So I did that, and then grew up, moved to Houston. When I moved to Houston, there was a big transition my junior year in high school. So that was a huge change. There was a lot going on. Big job transfer from my dad, and so we moved down there, just uprooted from a graduating class like 65, I think at the time, to 1,000 something. And so it was a big shock. That was kind of a big cultural awakening, because again, like we were talking about earlier, a lot of cultural influences in Houston. Keller, Texas, had about two. And so this really opened my mind in a lot of different interesting ways. But about that time also, right before I graduated high school, I had my first psychedelic experience in Houston. And so this was the time when I was 18 is really when things ramped up and kicked off. So I went wild and had a blast, and should not have lived at all through many of it. But I'm here. So that psychedelic experience I had at 18 really opened my eyes to a lot of things. This made me realize that this place is maybe not what they're telling. Maybe we're all connected, and maybe this strong, stable, sturdy reality that I've been told is here is really more fragile and fluid than has been articulated to me, or that I've been convinced to see it as. Another thing that happened about that time was left my house and I was on my own. I was out 2 days after graduation, right after my psychedelic experience. I moved out due to some other challenges that I had with the parental units at the time. Moved around, moved out, did whatever the hell I wanted for about 6 years. Right about the time that I moved out, though, all of this happened within a year, let's say year and a half max. At this time period was very crucial in my trajectory. So 18, very independent, had my first psychedelic experience. It was LSD. I had a horrible, horrible trip. It was mind-blowingly disastrous. Then moved out 2 days after graduation, got out on my own. I was handed a book called Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. Now, that book changed everything for me as far as spirituality goes. I never thought of the unity consciousness thing. I had a glimpse of it with the psychedelic experience, but the way it was laid out and explained, that we're all one entity experiencing itself subjectively, blew my mind. Never came across it. It's the one I'm the biggest fan of. I have no idea. But if I had to say, which one am I leaning the more towards because it makes the most sense to me, it would be that one. Then about that time also, this was all 2001, by the way, was the year in which I turned 18 and did all this. Got really introduced to conspiracy theories. With a few different things, and of course, inevitably just ended up devouring the movie Zeitgeist like we all do. And then had this incredible time, man. I was a musician for much of that. I ended up touring China, the U.S. I played, as a touring musician for about 12 years, and then moved up here to North Texas to take care of my grandmother when she got Alzheimer's. Did not know that at the time. That, again, was another trajectory point. Met what would become my wife, and then we played the Matrix game for about about 12 years. We played the Matrix game, or like I refer to that like we, I drank like every day, and I had a job with a beer industry, and I was great at it, but I played the 3D role really, really, really well. But I always had this, so colored from my experience. And I've, of course, been a psychonaut, meaning I do a lot of psychedelics throughout these years. Not a lot, a healthy amount. So it's something that's always kind of been there, but really put it on pause, and now it's ramped right the fuck back up. I'm not working in the Matrix anymore. I'm doing my own thing. I've got, like I said, this beautiful ranch with my wife. We do rescue animals out here and stuff. We've got donkeys, goats, chickens, horses, all kinds of cool stuff. And it's amazing. I'm the happiest I've ever been, and all of it was important to get me to where I'm at now. And now this really feels like the next trajectory point. It happened about a year and a half ago, and that really now is the new one, which is very interesting. And I'm just the happiest I've ever been, having a blast, man.
Isn't that crazy? During one of the worst times in human history, a lot of us found more purpose than ever and more meaning than ever. And I mean, it's wild to really think about it that way. Just to think about, like, I mean, it's almost sad because all the tragedy in the world, and all the people that didn't have that experience, that some of us felt like, and you know what, I can't say it was all positive for myself either, because I just recently, I remember driving by a park where the hoops were down in Massachusetts. They took down all the basketball hoops, and I love basketball, and I would a couple times a week would play, and it was a great therapy of mine. And I remember just driving around, and like the streets were dead and there's no kids in the park. And I remember just driving around thinking, like, when the fuck is this ever going to look normal again? And the end of the pandemic seemed so far in the distance. And then, recently I drove by and I'm looking around and I'm like, I didn't think this day was going to come. I didn't know if this day was going to come. I didn't, there's things were being ramped up at such a rate that it's like, you didn't know. And the uncertainty, I think, caused just that alone, the uncertainty of not knowing. Even if we knew it was going to end, we didn't know when it was going to end. And that uncertainty, I think, causes a little bit of anxiety about the whole thing. But on a positive note, it opened a door to places like Rockfin and BitChute and Odyssey and Rumble and Parler and Getter and Float and all the alternative platforms that really got appreciated, and their popularity grew because of the ramped up censorship on these other platforms. I think people start appreciating shows like yours and mine much more, and the importance of it. And because, like I said before, a lot of people were distracted. There was a niche group of the population that enjoyed going down these rabbit holes, but there's still a huge portion that wasn't interested. And now I think that that niche portion is much greater, and people are I think the amount of podcasts that doubled in 2020. It was like something insane, the amount of podcasts. And I personally, I don't think there can be enough of them, because
I agree.
you know,
Agreed.
the way I look at it is like the more the merrier. You know, the more people who are putting out these interesting conversations and topics, the better, because we never know which one's going to connect with someone. You know, who are they going to find? Are they going to find your show, my show? Doesn't matter. It's like, as long as they find somebody's show that kind of plants that seed of curiosity into the world. But also that unity thing you brought up, like I've had Rupert Sheldrake on the show some years ago, and you know, it's funny because he tied a lot of things together in regards to, like, you know, just this idea you would constantly hear throughout history, like this idea of everything being one and everything being connected. And then, you know, are you familiar with like that mouse maze experiment, where like they had these mice that would learn this maze, and then mice in a different location would learn the same maze quicker, and then, you know, and every time they did it, like the mice would learn that maze quicker. And it was like that there's some type of connection, consciously connected in some way, where that's the only thing that really understood or could explain or understand like why these mice were learning it quicker, even though they were never exposed to this maze before. It's fascinating, but it kind of makes sense when you think about like the generations of people historically that would always talk about us being all united and one. And, you know, one thing we learn is that modern day, we like to think we have everything figured out, but we're learning a lot from the wisdom of the past. And so many times it's like lost knowledge, not lost information, lost wisdom. We relearn it, right? We're like, oh, you know, they used to say this, and it's like, oh, it makes so much sense, or they understood what this meant, you know. So it's really important, I think, to kind of ponder on those things.
Dude, you could not be more right. And then in the 70s, they did that 100th monkey effect. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Can you explain it for people who haven't?
Yeah. Same concept. Basically, Japanese scientists were studying these macabre something monkeys on this island, and so they would throw sweet potatoes out for them. One young female monkey, and this study I think took place over several years, like a long time, at least 5 years, something like that. What they noticed is that a young female monkey would take her sweet potato that was dropped on the beach, and she realized that if she dipped it in water and washed all the sand and shit off of it, it tasted better. Now, a lot of them just ignored her. She continued to do it because she favored that. That was her preference. She's like, oh, this is way better. You guys are dumb for doing it that way. Anyway, so a few adult monkeys started taking her up on this. The whole troop started doing it. Now, it's very interesting is monkeys hundreds of miles away that were not participating in this experiment would start washing their food as well. And so this was the idea that they're separated over time. Exactly to what you said, this plays out into swarm theory, where those birds that move in all those crazy patterns together, you never see two of them collide and just fall out of the sky. It's fascinating. So there is some sort of fabric or some sort of consciousness or intelligence that sort of governs this. And again, we can look at science and look at the quantum entanglement. There was a thing that Niels Bohr and Einstein argued about, which was what Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. And basically, scientifically, when you affect one particle that's interlocked together, quantum entangled, they're the same thing, basically, and you separate them by whatever distance, it could be the entire other side of the universe. When you spin one, the other is affected as well, instantaneously. So this tells us, again, that the speed of light in a vacuum is not the speed limit in this place. Whatever it is, it's instantaneous because, yes, back to this unity consciousness idea that psychedelics kind of really solidified for me, was this idea that we're all one, we're all this thing, we're just individuated vibrations of consciousness experiencing itself in a subjective way. And even Bill Hicks, had this great joke that what's going to happen to the arms industry, they're war profiteering whenever they find out that we're all one. There's a wonderful little video on YouTube that I highly recommend everybody check out. And it's called The Egg. It's about 8 minutes long, 7 minutes and something long. But this explains the unity consciousness idea in a way that will absolutely blow your mind. Like, this expands your reality. Is this one concept, and it's a 7-minute commitment. So it's something I highly recommend for everyone if you just want a little tweak to your perception, and if nothing else, just to take you out of your day. It's very, very interesting.
That's why I've always been so attracted to philosophy, because it's not answers. They're not giving you answers. They're giving you questions to ponder on. And it's constantly debating one another. Like, there's this guy, Michael from Greece. I ran into his show. he has a show called On Tyranny, which is a podcast which is named after a Strauss book, I believe. And he also has this series on YouTube called Ancient Greece Revisited. And he's one of those guys that I just love hearing him talk, because he takes inspiration from so many different philosophers, and he doesn't always have answers. Like, he doesn't, like, you keep waiting for him to come to a conclusion, but he doesn't. And like he says, a lot of the great philosophers, like, a lot of times you think they're going to come to a conclusion, they don't. They just leave you hanging so you can ponder on it. And I think that's so important to do that, to just ponder on these questions. Question in the alternative media community, we're all constantly saying question everything, and then you can, even a lot of people who say that, you can find the one thing that they're like, no, that's bullshit. And I'm like, wait, I thought we agreed that you question.
Wait, this counts as everything. Yeah, this is in the category of everything because it's there. It exists. Dude, could not agree with you more. Damn it, I was gonna say something super dope and I totally lost it. But I completely agree with you. Whatever it was amazing. Completely agree with you.
Well, hopefully it comes back to you. Alex from Skeptico, I've been on his show and he's been on my show. And it's funny because we got into the debate about, so I've had Dr. Tom Cowan on years ago. I actually ran into his work. I can't get credit for being the first one to have him on a show, because I ran into his work years ago on the Ben Greenfield show, which was a phenomenal, actually it's quite surprising too that Ben Greenfield had somebody on who was so going so against the grain like him, and borderline controversial. But and I'm like, wow, this guy just completely changes the way I look at things and turns what I thought I knew upside down. And I remember having this conversation with because Alex also had him on, and Alex called everything he had to say basically bullshit. I think the podcast lasts like 10 minutes. I don't know how long it was. It was like 10 minutes. Like, they were just like, I think it was uncomfortable for everybody involved. And
Sure.
and Tom probably felt like he's just interrogating me, and Alex was basically just saying everything that he said was bullshit. And it ended really quickly. And I'm like, but yet Alex is one of those guys that, again, like, very open-minded on a lot of topics, but not on Tom Cowan's his view on viruses, or his view on water, or or the human heart. He's done some great really thought-provoking books, but it's like, I don't know, why do you draw the line there? Like, you believe, and you see that actually with a lot of people. Like, I remember Noam Chomsky being a fan of manufacturing consent, and him talking about Edward Bernays, and just like, basically he was talking about the ruling elite and how they manipulate us and control us, and the psychology of control. And yet, like, and then September 11th would come around and he would dismiss it like, oh, that's crazy conspiracy. I'm like, wait, you talk about the psychology of control, and you talk about war propaganda and all this stuff, and yet, like, that's where you draw the line. Like, you can't it's like, it's amazing how some people have blinders on to certain topics, even with like I almost joke around about like the flat earth thing. I'm like, it's like the flat earth test. I'm not trying to figure out if you believe in the flat earth or not. I'm bringing it up to see if you're truly open-minded or not. Because if you didn't even look into it at all, like, you dismissed it immediately without even like saying, you know what, let me look into it, like, then I'm like, you're not as open-minded as you think. Because doing that exact thing of like, this is too crazy to believe, so I'm not even going to give it the time because it's not worth my time. That's how a lot of people handle a lot of the topics that have now been proven to be true. People dismiss it. They immediately believe like, that's too, vaccines harming people. That's fucking crazy. Like, no, we all know they're safe and effective. Like, I remember having Gerard Williams on my show years ago, and it was like 2014, before before the Finding Hitler show was even on TV. And he was one of the authors I ran into that had really well documented book about Hitler making it to Argentina. And I remember talking to like history buffs that are like, no, I've never even heard of that. That can't be true. And it's like, and I'm like, have you looked into it? Because I didn't look into it until I ran into Gerard Williams. And boy, does it make a lot of sense, and it has a lot more evidence that that's the case. And so it's like, to me, it's there's nothing that's too crazy to at least give a little bit of attention and time to see if there's anything there. Now, of course, there are some things that are just absolutely insane, and when you look into it, you'll find that out. They're absolutely insane and backed up by nothing. But you don't want to jump to that conclusion prior to actually giving it some time and effort into seeing why people believe this.
You're absolutely right, and I do remember what I was talking about. It's about questions. So one thing that I had a gentleman named Tom Barnett on the show, and one thing that he was talking about, man, was he really brought to light, I think, what we're all really great at. It's like we don't know what's going on, but we know what's not going on, or we know what they're telling us that is not true, right? And so from that, you can tell a lot. Now, I've been saying for a long time now that whatever's screaming for your attention in politics, media, medical industry, education, all that crap, the food industry, anything yelling at you for your attention is, when you really, really look at it, and this is what Tom and I geeked out on, it's an inversion of reality. So it's really cool is you can look at it and you can just go, oh, just do the opposite of that, and my life's going to be completely awesome. And I'll be damned if it doesn't work. So one of the interesting things about asking questions, just like what you said, yes, because I would consider myself in more of a philosophy type of a category. My show, again, to what you were talking about the gentleman that didn't go so well with the new ideas, the cognitive dissonance, is the best because I literally, at my core, I don't think I'm right, and I'm not here to prove anyone wrong. So both are true. So I'm open to any of it. I've had a young lady on the show named Stephanie Patel that channeled Steve Jobs, and we had a wonderful conversation. And that woman, when we wrapped, said, "Thank you for listening to me." And you just sit there and think about how many people dismiss that poor woman offhand because they don't understand, or it challenges their stable view of reality. And this is another thing that I've abandoned a long time ago, man. This earth could be round or flat. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with either. And I'm fine with actually the concept of either being true depending on what you believe it is. I'm there with my research that actually this idea of a consensus reality, or that we all exist in the same place, is becoming further and further from reality for me all the time. And actually, perhaps what's happening is that only what you're seeing and paying attention to is what's rendered in your reality. China's not a real thing for you if you're not in China, because you're not there. The game doesn't need to render it. The experience doesn't need to provide that energy for you to experience that idea called China. It can do it just by telling you that it exists in a system. So let's say also that this system is just out to enhance, grow, like a danger room from X-Men, that this place is for you to grow and to learn. It's a test facility, and it offers you options, energetic options, and you have the choice. This is again why I say that they're not going to stick a needle in your arm. If you don't want that to happen, it's not going to happen. They have to abide by this, which again, kind of when you really zoom out and you really just zoom, okay, cool, what's happening? Then again, you're led with only questions. I have no fucking clue what's going on at all. This reality could be more flexible to me than ever right now, and I've never felt more comfortable about it. It actually makes the most sense that I could walk out that door and there'd be a sand monster like in Beetlejuice, or I could walk out that door and see exactly what I expect to see, which is my beautiful property and my horses and all that good stuff. Now, either could occur in my reality, and I'm totally cool with it. There are things like the Mandela effect that trip me the fuck out. And those are all kinds of stuff. Those are things that are just vanished from reality, that a shitload of people remember. And we'll swear to it that we remember that. What's that all about? UFO encounters, paranormal, time slips, missing time. Like, what is going on here? This place gets way more mysterious when you really stop paying attention to the inversion of what this place has to offer you, and you really maybe entertain that this is a beautiful place full of abundance and possibilities, and that it's yours for the taking. And this is what I think this new paradigm, this new shift is offering us. It's a glimpse into what was bullshit. And now what's interesting about what you said, man, was it's kind of like, and we've all said it, it's this idea that we just can't wait for things to go back to normal. I think that even the lizard turds were correct in saying that it's never going to go back to normal. I think what we're really saying here, and what we really have the opportunity to do here, is to create a new vision of the future. Now, we can have the wet dream that Klaus Schwab wants us to have, this new whatever the fuck, or we can take this as an opportunity to take our own lives into our own hands and create the future that we want. I think that this is what's going on. I think this is the opportunity presented to us. And if you zoom out one more level, the lizard turds, all the people instituting all these horrors and atrocities on this place, and the people here to experience what they are and to transcend that is the same damn thing. And actually, this lizard turd energy kicked itself up and kicked it up a notch because everyone was too cool with the old way, with the normal. Because what was happening in that normal is children were getting molested constantly. Your wages were getting diminished all the time. Inflation was going off the rails. Things are just being manufactured and dissolved right in front of you. Your fear is being guided constantly, and you're constantly distracted away from being here and present and enjoying shit like your family and waterfalls. And so maybe this shift occurred as a motivator for us to all move forward collectively. Because at some level, when you look at the unity consciousness model, for all one thing experiencing itself subjectively, it broke itself up into smaller pieces. Now, the idea is that it did this to experience itself and return to wholeness. So by doing that, it creates this reality. It creates this system in which it can experience itself, learn, grow, fraction, learn, grow, and assimilate and come back together. The assimilation and coming back together is, I believe, what we're experiencing now. You could see this in the example of cymatics, which for the audience, cymatics is just a speaker on top of a metal plate is how they demonstrate this, and they'll play a single tone frequency on that plate, just a single hum of whatever, and then they'll sprinkle salt or sand or some sort of granule on top of it. And what it'll do is, depending on the tone, it'll vibrate into a new pattern and solidify. They could do this with oscillators, but the cymatics one is interesting. The reason I bring it up specifically is because what it feels like is that this whole thing energetically is shifting, right? No one can deny this. What we talk about when we talk about the going back to the old normal, well, that was the old vibration. That was the old tone that this place is no longer resonating at. We've switched tones. Now it's vibrating at a new pace. It's assimilating and forming into a new pattern of reality based on tones. Tesla says this. Tones, frequency, vibration, you'd understand the secrets of the universe. Now, the way that I kind of picture what we've been experiencing over the past couple of years is this old tone or pattern that was fixed in place. It was this, again, normal that everybody wants to go back to, where we're being fucked every day of your life. You know what I mean? We can all look back and really see it if we're really honest with each other and say, what we want is to be comfortable, okay? If that's the case, then we have the opportunity to create that in a way to where it's not psychologically damaging and we're not raping the natural world, where we live in harmony with everything. And this is not this, like, again, they put examples of this out there with like the global warming and all this shit in the World Economic Forum. That is not it. And you know this because it's coming out of their fucking mouth. That is an inversion of reality. What it is, though, is an opportunity for you to look at something that perhaps we can improve on in our way, in the way that we're ready to create. So as this pattern is shifting tonally, the granules move and there's bumpage, you know, there's things that kind of bump into each other as we're forming into this new pattern. Family members drift apart to another line, friends you lose, you start to find new things that vibrate with you and match with you, and this is the new pattern in which life forms in front of us. Now, this would be interesting in a model like what we talked about a unity consciousness model. Let's say at some level, it switches tonally. So there's kind of like a speed dating element to the tones that we experience here, if you want to look at it that way. We basically have a certain period of time in which all of our creative powers, desires, knowledge, wisdom, everything can accumulate in a certain tone or frequency of a pattern that's being displayed over this reality. Now, let's say that what people are seeing as far as this age of Aquarius, all the astronomical things taking place, Pluto's return, again, if you think astronomy or astrology is bullshit, that's fine. But all the billionaires have astrologers. All sitting presidents have had astrologers. People use astrology in the high, and they do that because there's something to it. Again, it's back to that thing. Whatever they demonize or whatever has probably got a lot of fucking truth to it. So with all of that, it seems that this example of cymatics is a really damn good one because we're seeing dissonance. We're seeing the old pattern really falling apart, and it's not going to go back to the old way. But that's awesome because what it is going to go to... and the other thing about this, too, that kind of whenever I hear people, I want it to go back to the old way. Well, what the old way, again, was you being led by the hand, you being directed. You had the illusion of freedom. What we have the opportunity here now for is actual fucking freedom. And it scares the shit out of people. And this is, I think, where we're at. This is why, I don't want personal responsibility. I'd like to just go back to watching sports on weekends and driving my car and my buddies and I getting drunk and playing golf and bitching about our wives. But really... maybe you are heading to an opioid addiction, and really, maybe it's not, maybe there's something better. You're given something, bread and circus and all that good stuff, but god damn it, it's not everything. It's a fraction, it's a sliver of what we can create here. And they don't want you to know that. This is why the systems are in place to keep you at that frequency. The cool shit though is cymatically referred to back. The tone changed. We're all shifted. It's shifted. There's a little couple of granules still kind of settling into place. That dragon is falling off the cliff and throwing a few last spears, but it's over, man. And we won. That's the best part about this. So I'd, again, encourage everybody, just take you a good deep breath and enjoy the fuck out of the fact that you're not one of these lizard turds and that you're not a fluoride-ridden person that just is okay with being led by the hand. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your choice to experience and what you choose to spend your attention and your time here on, which is all you really have, then go for it, man. But I think that this is, again, what a more instituted thing from a higher level. And whether you believe in spirituality, numerology, astrology, all that shit, all the people that you're scared of, that are making decisions for us, that used to be making scared of, and that we used to be scared of, they all really, really believe in this shit. And now, again, it feels like we're at a point energetically to where it's over. Like, that's it, man. It's ours now. So let's create freedom. Let's create actual love, actual take care of everyone else. Not this manufactured bullshit that's coming from the news. That again, is an inversion of reality. It's not real. It's only got the power that you give it. So give your power and attention to something positive. Let's create a new fucking future.
Yeah, that's all really, really important points. You're right. I mean, some people, again, like things will never be the way they were, regardless if all the restrictions went back, because life experiences changes you forever. You know, whatever you went through, and we all went through something. Some worse than others, but we all went through something together, kind of. And it was weird too, because saying that out loud, like, oh, we all went through it together, it reminds me of how many conversations I had with people that weren't spiritual, that all of a sudden would discuss how they felt like this was a spiritual battle that we're kind of living through. And I mean, it felt like a incredible battle between good and evil. And I think a lot of people, I would say this a lot on the show, especially in like 2020 and 2021, that some of the people that were resisting what was really going on or having a hard time accepting it, I think they had a hard time accepting evil, that evil existed, that it was a real thing, that people would willingly harm people, or at least not stop the harm from happening. And I mean, some of the things like what was going on in Washington, where they were trying to pass a bill, and I've kind of lost track of where it stands now, but the bill where they were going to let kids, I think, in high school get vaccinated without their parents' consent. And I mean, that's crazy to think about. Like, who would be okay with, like, how could you not describe that as pure evil? Your parents would have no say. They could talk you into something without your parents there to protect you and help you make that decision. I mean, it was just, so much of it did feel like pure evil. And spiritual people, and I think also religious people, why you saw a lot of religious people so outspoken, and really it almost seemed like the spiritual and religious people picked up on it quicker, because it was easier for them to accept that, okay, if we believe in good, then we must believe in evil, and this is evil. And I think people who were less spiritual or less religious kind of, it's almost like they had a hard time believing that such evil could exist, that people could do such harm. But it's weird that they couldn't accept that, because we know war exists, we know unjust wars have existed since the beginning of time. So it's like, since the beginning of time, things like this have happened, you know. So it's almost like when you talk about past events, when you talk about historical events, people kind of look at it as those were the people of that time, not the people of our time. Like, we've come to some crazy awakening of morals and reason and logic, and we don't go around harming people for no reason anymore. And it's like, no, man, like we just now live in a illusion of no monarchy, no elite, and democracy is a illusion. It's like, but there's still people trying to control people, and there always will be people trying to control people. And that's what kind of prevents us from, you know, you brought up Zeitgeist. It's funny because I remember having James Corbett on the show when I started my show in like 2013, early 2014. And I remember like talking about the Zeitgeist movie and how important I thought it was for people waking up to this idea that the whole banking system is complete bullshit. Obviously, the very first Zeitgeist movie, they talk about how going back, how you can see all the false flags and you can see all the ways they use these events to manipulate you, and they even hit on September 11th and all these other things, and yet Corbett was so resistant to it because he didn't like the third one, the conclusion, the way that they saw the world. But
Gotcha.
Because a lot of people in the libertarian movement or anarcho-libertarian or anybody who, a lot of people just resisted that view of the world in the future, and it kind of, it's funny because when you started hearing people say this, the quote from Klaus Schwab that, you will own nothing and be happy. It kind of made me think of the Zeitgeist movie, but then in a way it doesn't have to be a evil thing. Like, you can take a good thing and use it for evil, right? Like, but this idea, like
transmutation,
yeah,
and vice versa. You can take bad and turn it into good. I'm an alchemist. I do this all the time.
Yeah, well, I always looked at, like, for example, some of the issues we talked about briefly was, the dumbing down of people, right? Like this idea that people aren't looking or striving for more out of life because society's kind of taught us to be at this kind of monotone place where we're just like, everything's just kind of, it is what it is. You don't look beyond anything. And so it's like, if you could have a society where you had something like a universal basic income, right? And I've pushed back on this with friends and even guests, where I'm like, okay, so let's analyze this in a way like, okay, detach the idea that people will use this to control us or to get us on the government tit, okay, and getting us dependent on government and the system. Okay, detach yourself from that. Okay, we know that there's a dumbing down of people. We know because of the debt that they get us in at a young age, because you go to you go to college, you go to university, you come out in debt, which means now you're a slave to that debt, you're a slave to that job because you have to pay off that debt. So you don't have the freedom to go travel or try out different jobs, different just different careers, and just you have no flexibility. You're kind of stuck where you are, and then you end up buying material things that kind of make up for that emptiness, and then it's just this vicious cycle of creating debt and then paying off that debt and creating, and it's just like it's endless. You never really do anything fulfilling. Well, what if we looked at universal basic income as a way of saying, okay, you can pursue passion projects, you can pursue things that are less financially or will lead to less financial success, but that's because your basics are taken care of. And now let's like remold society where we have kids that are pursuing arts or philosophy or history or things or psychedelics, whatever it may be, whatever studies they might be intrigued with. And because they don't have that burden of debt, because they don't have that burden of having to get by, then they can continue pursuing that. So it's almost like it becomes a positive thing, right? Because instead, because of the burden of debt, because of the way we've structured our society, you get out of college and you're so in debt that your first option or your first place you're going to look for a job, it's going to be the highest paying job because you want to pay off that debt. It's not which job makes you the happiest. It's not, you don't even have any of that flexibility. Same thing with like, not owning anything. Like I've played with this idea in my head where I'm like, well, am I really jumped into the conclusion that would be a horrendous thing? Because I'm like, you look at the gym. I've been a gym rat most of my life. I go to the gym at least 4 times, 5 times a week. I don't own any of that shit. And I share it with everybody who goes to the gym. And it's a community. We go there. I see it's familiar faces. There's new faces. There's old faces. There's certain people I talk with about soccer. There's certain people that I have deeper conversations with. There's people I talk, like I have so many different relationships with so many different people, and nobody really cares that we don't own any of this shit, So it's like so many times you have this idea of the way things have to work. And I think sometimes we need to even second guess why. Is it only because it's linked to the Great Reset and the possible future that they're trying to build, where we own nothing, so they can control everything, or or there are there other alternative ways of looking at things. And I think that's the thing about the Zeitgeist movement, and which really was influenced by the Venus Project prior to the Zeitgeist movement. One thing I would constantly say on the show, and I would try to get James Corbett or anybody else who hated the Zeitgeist movement to also agree with me, is you can't take away the fact that they are saying they are planting the seed, or at least sparking the idea and sparking thoughts into a possible alternative way of having a society or culture. And I'm like, that's a good thing, even if you disagree with the way they look at the future, and maybe what they think is a better society and the way they would mold it. Just the fact that they're getting people to reanalyze the way things work, and if this is the way things have to work, because it doesn't. And we can have plenty of different ways that we can trade things or do things or communicate or have communities or whatever. So I think that's a good thing.
I think that's a great thing, and I completely agree with you. And one of those different ways to look at this would be that them offering you a UBI, Universal Basic Income, and then letting you paint every now and then or whatever in a smart city, let's say, in my mind is the equivalent of them giving you yard time in a prison. It's still in a goddamn prison. The system itself is what's flawed. They can polish that turd all they want, and they can look at it like that, and it's just more ways of kicking the collective can down the road as far as more enslavement, less rights, all of those things. Now, again, how I look at this is it's opportunities. It wasn't lockdowns. It was time for everyone to go home and do what we in the spiritual community call shadow work. It was time for you to go inside, really view yourself, really figure out what you want. And a lot of people came out of that, forced lockdowns and shadow work, again, because maybe if you look at it as a yin yang, as it's here to help in this particular way. It's a very motivating way, but we had our shot basically, and we slept on it. So now this is the wake up call. So if you look at it like that, then it changes things completely. If you say, okay, well, with this UBI, if that's an option, then what that is an option for us to create that. Let's get rid of, the Fed. Okay, well, that system's obviously broken. And I think, again, like what this whole work from home thing figured out, there was a thing that I read about how middle management were the ones pushing for people to come back into the office. And the reason for this is because they were figuring out that they're not essential, that actually they don't need to be micromanaging and stressing people out, and that actually people are just fine governing themselves in an office type situation. So there's this frantic movement for a lot of upper middle management people, so that the big tops don't find out that they're full of shit, to get everyone back into the office so that they could justify their existence. Okay, well, what if we create a system? Crypto's trying to do this, but again, it's kind of an opportunity for us to do this. They're working on this, but what it shows you is that there's a better thing out there and that we don't need them. And this is not like fucking burn it all down. It's not lynching people in the street. It's none of that. It's stop participating in the nonsense. When you talk about things from the system that are counterintuitive to your intuition, instead of just getting upset and letting it run your life, figure out why it's in your presence. Why do you feel the way that you do about what you're being presented? It's an opportunity every time. I would again encourage people, as maybe just a side mission intellectually, to, instead of facing these things as challenges or fear-based things that are gonna happen. And in Texas, we have this saying called "Don't go borrowing trouble." Okay, don't go building bridges you're never gonna cross. Don't worry about shit that may or may not happen. Okay, because really, again, back to kind of the energetic thing and why I think predictive programming exists in the first place is because the system that's yelling at you, that wants you those things, and again, the inversion, can't create anything. They're not the creators here. We are. But we create based off our vibration and based off what we are. Okay, so the system in place is really, really good at amplifying a signal out to us to attempt to keep us in that lower vibration. And they've been doing a great job. They've been doing a damn good job. It's not stupid by any means. It's appalling, of course, and it's meant to be. Again, it's a motivator for us to get our collective shit together. And I think, again, this is what's going on. This is what we're seeing. So I only see this shit as opportunities. Back to what you said about the kids. The proposition of vaccinating children is clearly evil. Okay, we'll call it evil because that's the best word for it. But what this means is it's not an inevitability. It's not a bridge that we're building that we're going to have to cross. This is not borrowing trouble from now having to explain to our children why this happened. And no, what this is, before any of that shit happens, it's presented to you. You feel a certain way about it. It is your opportunity to fix it. Homeschool your kids. Get the fuck out of there. Start a community with other like-minded people and get that educational system going. You can buy kits online that will validate and actually improve your children's education and unplug from that system. Maybe it's the system's way of giving you an opportunity to create something better. One of the examples I use to this idea as well is the scene in The Matrix where Morpheus is tied up in the chair, Neo's about to come save him, and Mr. Smith, or whatever the Smith dude is standing there, he takes his earpiece out, and they're having a conversation. Now, Mr. Smith, the bad guy, the antagonist in this, he is saying to Morpheus, look, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this place. I hate the smell of it. I hate all of this. I just want it to end. If you view the systems out there as this. Now, the ending isn't the enslavement of humanity. They're scaring you with the enslavement of humanity, so we'll get our shit together. It's one of these things to where it should be motivating. The system itself wants to collapse. It doesn't want to fucking perpetuate this either. Again, is how I look at it, because I have really worked on focusing my vision on the opportunities, and has completely rewritten the way that I look at the world. And it is, again, something that's been so goddamn freeing that I recommend everybody at least just entertain the thought of looking at it as an opportunity. Form your own collective if they're threatening shit at the school. If your job's telling you that you've got to get vaccinated and it's not something that you resonate with, bounce. There is tons of other shit to do out there. And actually, again, back to the shadow work thing, I found a lot of people, that's when they wrote their book. And I had them on the show. Man, I've had an idea for a book for 20 years, and I instead worked this job, hated life, and whatever, and finally this whole lockdown thing happened. I had a little time, and man, I wrote my book, and now I'm on your show, and now I'm going on Coast to Coast next week, and now their life is what they wanted it to be 20 years ago. Again, this is how I see it. This is the opportunities. This is the time. Everybody out there, this is the damn time, so take yourself up on it, is how I would say it.
I thought I was optimistic, but if you can take vaccinating kids and you actually turned it around where I'm like, you're right, actually, it would make people second guess putting their kids in a public school. I'm like, oh my God, he just took something that I thought you couldn't possibly make optimistic.
Alchemy. That's what that is. That's what I mean by I'm an alchemist. It's an energetic alchemy. I don't actually like have a lab where I'm turning fucking lead into gold. What it is it's that, and that's actually what the root of alchemy is. It's this. It's changing energies. It's taking this and Tai Chiing it into something dope, and I could do it every time. It's just I'm a chronic optimist in that way. So yes, it is an opportunity, because look, again, if you point it back to like what Sam says, and he's brilliant at this. This is one of the best fucking ways to put this. It's a haunted house, man. What's better is at a level when you really scale out, if you kind of participate in the idea that, you know, we're all one experiencing itself subjectively, and you're here focused in this consciousness at this time to do whatever you want, then you just kind of return to source. There's no hell, there's no any of that shit. It's just a ride. Again, back to what Bill Hicks said. Now, if that's the case, to Sam's metaphor, you chose to drive to this haunted house. You're with your friends, your spirit tribe, or whatever, your family, whatever. And you all showed up to this place. You paid money, you invested energy, took time away from doing anything else that you could have been doing, and you're here. You're here in this experience, and you're choosing to walk through this place. Now, this place has thrills and chills, and it's exciting. Again, I highly recommend everybody just go pull up Bill Hicks, The Ride on YouTube. It's 4 minutes long, whatever. Change your life. It's used in the intro of my show. And this is the point. And it's when you remember that it's a ride. That's when everything changes. That's when you're like, oh, okay, it is just a haunted house. Shit's just out here to scare me, and I can choose to be scared or not. There are people out here, man, that, you know, get scared and they cry and they forget it's a ride. And all you've got to do is be that lighthouse and say, hey, it's just a ride. You know, it's all going to be fine. Like, everything's going to work out. Like, everything's cool. You don't have to participate in this. Your kid's not going to get a fucking needle in his arm, pull him out of school. You guys will be fine. Make the right decisions for you. Let's create a new, better way, because that's what the Mr. Smith of the system wants us to do. That's why it's kicked it into overdrive from my perspective. That's all I can offer.
What a great way to end the show. It's funny because I think it was Jay from How to Kill a Sacred Cow, and some other people kept he kept saying like, oh, you and Brandon got to get together, you guys got to do a show together. So I'm glad we finally connected and did a show. For people listening who want to hear your show, like what video platforms is it on? What audio platforms is it on? I mean, chances are it's probably on all of them. The
Dude,
audio.
it's fucking all of them. It's on the most ridiculous amount of them. I'm going to just give you the one, but expandingrealitypodcast.com. That is the website. It's got all the shows, all the podcasts. It's got a link to YouTube, but we're phasing YouTube out, so stay tuned on that. It's got Too Hot for YouTube stuff. So like my interview with Max Egan is up there. John Paul Rice and I had a wonderful conversation. Immediately I knew it wasn't going on YouTube, but it is for free over on the website. The website's just free to navigate and hang out. Now, if you'd like to contribute to the show, there's an expansive insider program that we have going on that has a bunch of extra cool shit. Dave Zed from Gen Z and I are doing a series, and those videos are up there. And then there's replays of the lives that we do. I am a part of Rockfin, and that link is there. It'll link to the merchandise, to all the socials. The podcast itself, the audio version, you'll get a kick out of it. It goes out to like 58 different podcast platforms. I didn't even know that was a thing. So one day I just sat down and Googled how many podcast platforms are there. And I just entered my password and RSS feed to every single one of them. And then like the next week I was #1 in Estonia. I think Charlie Robinson had the same experience. So both people in Estonia that listen to podcasts listened to my show that week. And it was because I was on some random thing. I honestly don't even know the name of it. I just kind of went for all of them. And so the show is, we're not hard to find. But again, Rockfin, YouTube, the website, expandingrealitypodcast.com is where I would recommend. Start there. Yeah.
I got some Estonian friends, so I should ask them if they know.
Bro, yeah. Shout out. I love it.
Well, it's funny because one of my best friends growing up, he actually plays, he's from Estonia, and he went back to Estonia. He was raised in America, but he was born in Estonia. He went back to Estonia and ended up playing for their national team basketball, and meeting a beautiful wife, and now has a beautiful family, and he's settled down there. But yeah, that's funny. It's funny how like you don't know which
What?
yeah, you don't know which countries you're gonna be big in. Like, I mean, every once in a while I'll find, and I think it was kind of connected to this band called Beyond All Recognition. They're actually not together anymore, but I believe they were from Sweden, and all of a sudden, like my Swedish downloads went flying up, and it's like sometimes you're like #1 in like the weirdest countries, and it reminds me of that documentary of that musician. You know about the documentary of the musician who like retired, thought he like never made it.
Gonzalez. Yep.
Is that who it is? And then
I believe Gonzalo Rodriguez, something like that. It's a single Hispanic name, and I know exactly what you're talking about. He's in South Africa, I believe. I could yell at my wife. She could tell us right now. She could validate this. She knows.
because
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
and he went to a country after retirement, right? Like he retired from working full time, and then found out that he was like a huge star there, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah, and it's wild. It's like being David Hasselhoff and going to Germany. Yeah. And not knowing though, you know, that that your little CD that you put out, you know, and you just milled your way away in this factory, and then all of a sudden you move to a country and you're like the big name there. You're like a Kardashian. That's cool.
Yeah, that's funny. You're gonna go to Estonia one day, and you're gonna be a local celebrity.
You're like, oh my god, I don't even know what the accent is. I feel horrible for even attempting it. My apologies, guys. Thank you so much. Get me back to #1. What's even funnier is I'm not anymore. So that's what's even better. Is it was like for a week, I think, you know, and then people were just fucking over it. I don't know. They're just like, this guy's full of shit. What is this? And I just thought that was awesome.
Well, I feel like the English speaking countries, the English speaking podcasts do better in those countries, and then randomly you'll find like I'll do well in some like, you know, Latin American country or what. You know, it's funny. I was born in Portugal. My parents, you know, I'm from there. My grandparents. I mean, I live in Little Portugal, this town called Ludlow, Massachusetts, with a lot of Portuguese culture and stuff. The Portuguese people have not embraced my me.
No,
I consistently do awful in Portugal, and I'm just like, how I'm like, how are all these other countries doing well? I'm like, sometimes we talk about Portuguese soccer on the show, sometimes we talk about Portuguese culture. When I had Dr. Robert Malone on the show, the first like 20 minutes we talked about Portugal because he raises horses much like yourself, and he raises the Lusitano horse, the Portuguese horse, and he goes there for the big horse show, and I'm just like, you know, I'm like, Portuguese people, come on, embrace the fact that you have a host who's from your country. But no, they want nothing to do with it. I think when you're near beaches and you have other things to do, podcasting, maybe it's just there's better, you know, you're more into experiences, being outside and experiencing things, which is fine, you know. But it is funny how you just never know which country you're going to take off and why they connect with you, right?
It's great. I love it. And it's just, yeah, they keep popping up and, the show's doing awesome. So that's what's so great. I'm truly, truly grateful. And I can't thank you enough for just hanging out with you and spending this time with you. I've always been a big fan of yours. So thank you. This is an
Yeah.
honor for me.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, well, we're all in the same community. The beautiful thing about podcasting is that it doesn't feel like a competition. We're not competing at
I
all.
know.
There's enough
No.
for everyone. Everybody helps each other out. When we started the Union of Unwanted, that was one of the things I was really grateful for, was that I can help people out. I people would call me, like they would say, "Oh, you guys are like the Joe Rogan of the alternative media community, because you help with attracting people to these up and coming shows." And when I find like gems of people and gems of shows, it's like, if I can help in any way, it's like, why not? Like, and the cool thing too is sometimes those smaller shows, like I talked about False Reality Check. Your show's another perfect example of it. Like, some of the huge shows have the least interesting conversations, and some of the up and coming shows or smaller shows, I'm like, that host is like one of the most fascinating people to listen to. Like, they have such well thought out and interesting ideas. So it's like, a lot of times it's cool to help get some of those shows out there, because it's like, listen, man, like I've had plenty of guests on this show, and some of the most interesting, this one being one of them, what some of the most interesting shows I've had aren't with like household names, and yet when you do have a household name, sometimes you think, it's going to be the best show, and you're like, that conversation kind of, was.
Didn't even scrape my top 50. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully,
Yeah.
we'll again in the near future, and I'll send you links to the show once it's up and live, and hopefully have you on also another Union of Unwanted in the near future.
Be honored anytime. And I've got to get you over on my platform, man. This will be a blast. But thank you again for this. This was amazing. And thank you guys, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, Brandon. Take care.